This could quite literally change how you see racing simulators. And in this video, I'm going to explain why simply having a button on your wheel that hides or shows the in-game user interface can dramatically transform your focus, immersion, and performance whilst playing racing simulators. I'm also going to have a little rant about people that put crap all over their in-game UI and why it drives me crazy. As always, click the like button, subscribe so you can then unsubscribe when I say something that annoys you, and thank you to all our channel members, Patreon members, supporters, donors. Without you, we wouldn't be able to be so annoying on the internet. Thank you very much. So before I explain how to quickly set this up with the Assetto Corsa so you can try it for yourself and see how bloody good this is, quickly going to explain why this is so powerful, even though it's a really stupidly simple thing to do. So the temptation is, when you're doing sim racing, because you're on your own and you're performing the duties of an entire race team by yourself, the temptation is to cram the screen with every piece of information that you could possibly ever need to look at. Your fuel strategy, deltas for all the other driver, huge delta bar, God knows what else, like information on your rating, how many cups of tea you've had that day. Just put it everywhere. Your tyres in the different conditions, and the outside tyre temperature, the pressures, everything. The temptation is to put everything there so that you're on the Starship Enterprise and you can look to see what's going on with your car as you drive. Now, the problem is, though in some ways the information is needed because you're doing a whole team thing by yourself in a simulator, the problem is that ends up being really quite distracting when the focus should be on the actual driving and what's happening in front of you and around you. The raw focal driving component is where the focus should be. And if you've got all this information there, even if you're a genius like me, obviously, it's going to be saturating your brain. There's a thing called task saturation where you're doing too much stuff and you can hit a limit and you shut down like a Windows laptop that's run out of memory, which these days is, if you haven't got 128 gig that you spent £1 million on. But yeah, if you've got more stuff there, it's saturating your brain, and that's not a good thing. You want to be focused on the driving. So by having a button that allows you to remove the information when you're not going to look at it, you've magically immediately got rid of all that distraction. Additionally, and this is really great, you'll find that real cars have the information that the driver really needs to be aware of on the actual display on the steering wheel in the real car. It's like they've researched it and they've got people whose job it is to design these displays. Admittedly, some race cars have terrible displays, but that's that vehicle. That's what you're simulating. So that will force you to focus on the actual information on the wheel and how it would be for the driver if you turn off all the nonsense there. But a lot of people accidentally duplicate stuff that's on the wheel and then put it all over the screen. They don't even need to. So again, having the ability to turn it off, turn all the clutter off, makes things really way more immersive and way similar in many ways to being in a real car, especially if you're driving in VR. Now, what I noticed, and this is a particularly big thing with binding a button to just remove all the UI, is that because you don't have the UI on all the time, you don't intend it to like you normally do, it means that you can actually put UI elements in places on the screen where you wouldn't want them if they had to be on all the time. And you can make UI elements larger than you would if you had them on the screen all the time. And the big advantage of that is that when you need to check, are your tyres wearing out, or what's the gap, or certain things that you want to quickly check, you can push the button and, oh my god, it's really large and clear and easy to see, and then hide it again. it really actually ends up being a lot easier on the brain and a lot quicker to actually check the thing that you want to check. Furthermore, you also have the option with Assetto Corsa, and you could probably do it in some other simulators, but to not only have the show and hide the entire UI, you can also go to individual desktops that you set up. So you can click through the desktops as well as hide them. So one UI might have the really pertinent information that you want to quickly look at. So a delta bar, and like the gap between other drivers, maybe tyre wear, stuff that you might need to check more regularly. So you can have that as your main page, but then you can have other pages that are less likely used, with again the ability to hide them and unhide them if you want to by cycling through them. So I'm going to quickly show you in Assetto Corsa how to set this up. It's probably one of the easiest games to do this, and also one of the most versatile. You can just do it in the game as well. So if you've got Content Manager and Shader Patch, you just go to Assetto Corsa, Controls, and then you bind a button for on System here under UI. You just bind a button for hide. It just says apps, and you bind a button there, and also next desktop if you want to go through the desktops. By default, hiding all the apps is Control H on the keyboard. This is just doing that, but with a keyboard bind. You can also in Shader Patch have it so that you hide the entire UI, which by default is Control Alt Shift H, and you can bind that to a button. But if you use that, it literally hides the entire UI, so you can't even do navigational options until you re-enable it. So make sure you don't make that mistake, unless you really wanted to hide everything, which is quite useful for like if you're doing broadcasts and that replays and that kind of thing. But yeah, you bind that, and then you can turn it on and off, and it is really surprising how awesome this is. I mean, you would think, and I thought, oh, this is a stupid thing to do. I don't know why I started doing it. I started doing it because there's some apps when you play in VR that actually slow the game down and cause stutter that they don't in 2D. But if you've got some CMRT user interface, which looks really good, runs fantastically fine in 2D. I've not had any issues with it there. But in VR, sometimes it can introduce stutter when you've got really big grids. BCAS tools, which I use for a leaderboard, for some reason, when that overlays on in VR, seems to cause some stutter issues, or it's quite impacts performance quite a bit. So I was turning off the UI to not have it affect performance, but still be able to access it. So, but yeah, again, that's another option. If you've got UI elements that you really, really like, but you found they affect performance a little bit, or can cause occasional stutter, binding them to having it that they're on the screen, but you've got a button to turn them off, means that you can still use them without it affecting you whilst you drive. But yeah, absolutely amazing, especially in VR for immersion. But yeah, basic focus and keeping your attention on the game. I think it has quite a big effect. Now, it's probably, I said this bit I'm saying too late. People already comment on it. Give them a fish if they do write this comment. But people say, well, just use Crew Chief. Sure, I think Crew Chief is absolutely fantastic. I think the voice activation thing and it talking to you is, again, has a similar effect to this, where you can have that to minimise sort of task saturation or distraction. So totally worth using something like Crew Chief. Maybe even using something like Crew Chief and this in combination could be really good. Personally, I'm not a big fan of Crew Chief because, again, I find it quite distracting, talking voices and stuff. But I'm often live streaming and talking and reading the chat room, and I already have another window and chat room, so I'm already completely bombarded. So being able to turn this stuff off is actually really good for me. But yeah, Crew Chief could be a really good option for a lot of people. But give this a go. Give this a go, and let me know in the comment section if you thought it was completely stupid or a game changer. I think it's a game changer. We're saying, before we finish, in aviation, I know how much you guys love aviation and gliders. Who doesn't love gliders? Amazing, aren't they? In aviation, there's a real issue of people focusing too much. Ironically, actually, for people that do a lot of flight simming, there's an issue where people focus too much on the cockpit dashes and fly by all the dash details and everything. Obviously, a pilot does need to be aware of the dashes. It's very important. And all the information, altitude, airspeed, all that stuff. It's very important. But a large part of flying is actually looking out the window, especially in general aviation. And so, weirdly, this hyperfixation on all the dashes and data and numbers is something that happens with flight sims and then people that do real world flying, where they should be focused on the flying and what's actually happening. not all the dashes. I mean, people have literally had plane crashes from fixating on problems and dashes rather when they could have just flown the plane. So it's quite interesting to me that you see these sorts of things across different areas. But bind this, give it a go. Hopefully you find this useful and game changer. But the main thing is we need a button that gives us cups of tea instead of this hiding UI. That'd be the best thing. But yeah, thanks for watching. Happy tea drinking. Till the next one. Take care and goodbye.